Cincinnati, Ohio. Just outside the city, on a normal suburban street, stands the home of Greg and Dana Newkirk. At first glance, their house looks like any other home in the neighborhood. A neat lawn, quiet sidewalks, the calm rhythm of everyday life. It all seems so ordinary. But hidden behind that familiar front door is something that sets this place apart from all the rest. Inside the basement lies a room unlike any other. It is not filled with tools, storage boxes, or holiday decorations. Instead, it holds a strange and unsettling collection of objects, items believed to be cursed. These objects have come from all over the world, sent by people desperate to be rid of them. Each one carries a story, often dark and disturbing. From the outside, the Newkirk home blends into its surroundings, but the truth is far from ordinary. Visitors who step inside soon discover the basement's hidden world, a place where curiosity collides with fear. For Greg and Dana, this suburban house is not just a home. It has become a safe keeping ground, a place where cursed objects are stored away from unsuspecting hands. What looks like a quiet, suburban life hides a secret that most people would never dare bring into their homes. Greg and Dana Newkirk live what appears to be a simple and ordinary life. They wake up, go about their day, and move through the world just like anyone else. To neighbors and strangers, they are no different from the average couple you might pass on the street. But beneath this appearance lies a unique role that sets them apart. They are caretakers of cursed objects, strange items with unsettling stories, and, some believe, dangerous powers. It wasn't a path they planned or even dreamed of following. Collecting cursed artifacts was never an ambition, nor a goal they sought. Instead, it began as an accident, a twist of fate that slowly reshaped their lives. At first, their interest was simply in the unusual, the unexplained, and the strange. Over time, their curiosity grew into something more. People began to recognize them as reliable guides when it came to dealing with objects that carried disturbing histories. Word spread. Whenever someone faced trouble with a mysterious artifact, when fear or misfortune seemed tied to an object, they turned to Greg and Dana. One after another, people asked them for help, offering their cursed belongings for safekeeping. What started as casual interest became a responsibility. Today, Greg and Dana are known not just as investigators of the strange, but as protectors, keepers of a collection that most people would never dare to touch. Ordinary house from the outside, the Newkirk's home looks no different than the others lined up neatly along their suburban street. It has the same siding, the same shape, and the same quiet charm of any family house in Cincinnati, Ohio. Neighbors walk, and no one would ever suspect that behind those walls lies something deeply unusual. It is this very normal appearance that makes the house's secret all the more striking. Step through the front door, and everything at first seems familiar. The living room carries the warmth of a typical home, decorated with care and comfort in mind. The kitchen smells of coffee in the morning, and laughter sometimes fills the dining space. But the ordinary stops once you descend into the basement. There, in a room hidden below the daily life of the household, sits a collection that is anything but normal. This contrast is what makes the Newkirk home remarkable. Above ground, it is just another suburban residence, blending into its surroundings without drawing attention. Yet beneath the surface, it shelters a world of strangeness. Objects said to carry curses, items steeped in dark energy, and stories that could unsettle even the bravest visitor. The house may appear ordinary, but its true identity rests below, in shadows most would rather avoid. Strange basement. Beneath the Newkirk home lies a basement unlike any other. Most basements are filled with old furniture, dusty boxes, or holiday decorations tucked away for later. But here, the air feels heavier, the atmosphere charged with something unseen. The basement has been transformed into a chamber of strange objects, each one carrying a story, each one sent from people who no longer wish to live with them. This is not just a storage space. It is a vault of mystery and fear. Shelves and tables hold items from across the world. Some look ordinary at first glance, a ring, a book, a doll. Yet their history makes them extraordinary and dangerous. Visitors who step into the basement often sense it immediately. The room feels different, as if the objects themselves are alive with silent intent. Greg and Dana understand this weight. They have accepted the responsibility of guarding these cursed things, keeping them under lock and key, hidden from careless hands. This unusual basement has become the heart of their work, a place where curiosity meets dread. To some, it is a museum of the strange. To others, it is a chamber best left untouched. But to Greg and Dana, it is a duty. They know that each item has the power to harm, and it is their task to contain it. What began as simple interest in the unusual has turned their basement into one of the strangest private collections in the world. Start by chance, the Newkirks never set out to collect cursed objects. It was never part of a plan, nor did they imagine their lives would be shaped by such strange and dangerous things. Their journey began by chance, a series of small steps that slowly pulled them into a world they could not have predicted. At first, their interest was simple, just a fascination with the unusual, the unexplained, and the mysterious stories people whispered about haunted or cursed items. That curiosity soon led them to explore deeper. They began investigating strange events, traveling to places connected with paranormal tales, and listening to people who had unusual experiences. It was never meant to be more than exploration, a way to understand the weird corners of the world. Yet along the way, something unexpected happened. People began turning to them for help. One by one, individuals burdened by strange objects asked the Newkirks to take them away. Some were frightened, some exhausted, and some simply desperate to escape the bad luck they believed the objects carried. Greg and Dana agreed, thinking it was temporary. But as the requests grew, so did their collection. What started as curiosity became responsibility. What began by accident became their life's path, a role neither of them had ever imagined taking on. Growing reputation. As word spread about Greg and Dana's unusual role, their reputation began to grow. At first, it was just a few people who knew they were willing to handle cursed items. But soon, stories traveled far beyond their small circle. Friends told friends, and eventually strangers from across the country began reaching out. People who felt plagued by mysterious objects, or who believed their lives were falling apart because of something in their possession, sought out the Newkirks for help. They became known not only as investigators of the strange, but as caretakers for things no one else wanted to touch. Every new case added weight to their names. They weren't collectors in the traditional sense, they were trusted with objects that others feared. This reputation came with both respect and caution. Some saw them as brave, while others wondered if they were inviting danger into their lives. Despite the growing attention, Greg and Dana remained grounded. They insisted they lived normal lives, but acknowledged that their responsibility was anything but ordinary. Their reputation was not built on fame or spectacle, but on the quiet act of taking on burdens that others could no longer carry. Over time, they became the people you called when a cursed object was destroying your peace, a reputation neither of them had expected, but one they accepted with care. Taking the burden. When people approached Greg and Dana with cursed objects, it was rarely out of curiosity. It was out of desperation. Someone would find themselves living with an item that seemed to bring endless misfortune, strange activity, or even illness. They did not know what to do, who to trust, or how to escape it. That is when the Newkirks were asked to step in. Time and again, frightened owners pleaded with them, "Please, just take it away. I can't live with this anymore." For Greg and Dana, accepting these objects was never a casual decision. They knew that each one came with its own story and its own dangers. Yet they also knew that refusing could leave people trapped with something that felt impossible to handle. So, they took on the burden. What might have destroyed a family, haunted a workplace, or even harmed someone further was instead locked away in the Newkirks' care. This role became less about collecting and more about protection. Every time they accepted an object, they carried not only the item but also the responsibility of keeping it contained. In their hands, the burden of many became the duty of two. The basement grew heavier with each addition, but so did their sense of purpose. They weren't thrill seekers, they were guardians, holding the weight that others could no longer bear. Warning visitors: anyone who visits the Newkirk's home is given a clear warning before stepping into the basement. Greg and Dana make no attempt to hide what is there, nor do they soften the truth. They explain that the room is filled with cursed objects, items tied to misfortune, fear, and sometimes harm. This warning is not meant as a trick or a thrill. It is meant as protection. They know the risks of being too close to certain pieces in their care, and they want guests to understand that crossing into that basement means stepping into a space charged with unsettling energy. Yet, despite the warnings, people still ask to see the collection. Many arrive curious, their imaginations sparked by stories of haunted and cursed items. Some treat it like a strange attraction, a chance to glimpse the unusual. But Greg and Dana have learned that what seems exciting at first can quickly turn heavy. Visitors often discover that being near these objects feels far less like fun and far more like standing before something dangerous. The Newkirks never take such reactions lightly. Their warnings serve as reminders that the basement is not a spectacle. It is a responsibility. Anyone who enters must understand that this is not about entertainment. It is about facing objects that carry a weight most people would never choose to bring into their homes. The hidden draw: it may seem strange that people, even after hearing the warnings, still want to be near cursed objects. Logic would say to stay away, to avoid anything tied to misfortune or harm. Yet there is something about these items that pulls people closer. The Newkirks have seen it countless times. Visitors enter the basement with caution, but as soon as they stand among the shelves, they feel a powerful draw. Curiosity overcomes fear. People want to look, to touch, to feel the presence of what is different. Greg explains it simply: when something is cursed, it is also special. A chair is just a chair, until it carries a dark story that sets it apart from every other chair in the world. That uniqueness is what attracts us. Human beings are fascinated by what is rare, even when it frightens us. The darker the tale, the more it pulls at that hidden streak inside us that craves mystery, danger, and the forbidden. This hidden draw is what makes the Newkirk's collection both fascinating and dangerous. People may enter expecting to be entertained by spooky objects, but they leave with the realization that these items carry a strange power, one that calls to something deep inside us. It is a reminder that fear itself can be magnetic, and that what we should avoid often becomes what we most want to see. Objects made special: when people hear the phrase, cursed object, their first thought is often fear, but Greg and Dana explain it another way. Cursed objects are also special objects. A simple item, like a chair or a ring, becomes different the moment it carries a story of danger. That story changes it forever, lifting it out of the ordinary. Suddenly, it is no longer just wood or metal. It is a piece of mystery, marked by events that make it unique in the world. This uniqueness is what gives the objects their strange power over us. If something is cursed, it becomes set apart. Unlike thousands of other chairs, this one has a history people whisper about. Unlike countless rings, this one is said to bring death. That sense of difference sparks both fascination and dread. People may fear what these objects represent, but they are still pulled to look closer. Greg often says that the very thing that makes an item cursed, the fact that it causes harm, is also what makes it so compelling. It appeals to the darker side of human curiosity, the part that wants to know what lies beyond safety. In this way, every object in their basement carries more than a curse. It carries a story that transforms it into something rare. And that rarity, however dangerous, is what makes it unforgettable. Weight of care: while many people see cursed objects as spooky curiosities, Greg and Dana understand them differently. For them, the collection is not about fun or thrills. It is about responsibility. Every item in their basement carries a history of fear, misfortune, or suffering. To house them means carrying the weight of those stories and ensuring the objects do not fall into the wrong hands. That responsibility is heavy, and the Newkirks feel it every day. Some visitors imagine the basement as a kind of museum of horror, a place to walk through and enjoy a scare. But Greg and Dana know better. To them, these objects are not toys or props. They are dangerous, unpredictable, and deeply unsettling. It is their job to keep them safe, to lock them away, and to shield others from their effects. They are not showing off the strange, they are containing it. This duty changes the way they live. Even in their ordinary daily routines, they carry the knowledge that their home shelters things most people would never dare touch. They cannot take the collection lightly, because the risks are real. The weight of care is not just about storing objects. It is about protecting people, protecting themselves, and, in a way, even protecting the cursed items from being misused. Locked for safety, not every cursed object in the Newkirk's basement is open for viewing. Some are kept under lock and key, sealed away where no one can casually touch them. These are the most dangerous pieces, the ones tied to accidents, illness, or even death. Greg and Dana know that curiosity can be powerful, and even well-meaning visitors might be tempted to get too close. That is why certain objects must stay hidden, locked in boxes or behind barriers, out of reach for everyone's protection. For the Newkirks, safety always comes first. They understand that some artifacts are simply too unpredictable. A moment of contact, even a glance too long, might be enough to trigger strange reactions. They have seen guests grow pale, feel sudden anxiety, or even collapse in the presence of certain items. These experiences taught them that it is not enough to warn people. They must physically secure the most dangerous objects to ensure no accidents happen. To an outsider, it may seem extreme to keep these things under lock, but to Greg and Dana, it is necessary. Their role is not to display cursed objects like a showcase. It is to guard them. Behind every lock is a story of fear, a reminder of why the object ended up in their care. Each lock is a boundary between danger and safety, a quiet promise that what lurks in the basement will not escape into the world above. Power to harm the Newkirk's collection is not simply strange, it is dangerous. Some of the objects they keep are believed to have the power to harm anyone who comes too close. Visitors who step into the basement often learn this firsthand. Without touching a thing, they sometimes feel sudden unease, heart palpitations, dizziness, or waves of anxiety they cannot explain. For others, the effects are stronger nausea, fainting, even violent reactions that force them to leave the room. Greg and Dana have seen these responses too often to dismiss them. To them, it is proof that certain objects carry a kind of energy that can affect people in physical and emotional ways. They warn every guest, but even with those warnings, some underestimate the seriousness until they feel it for themselves. It is one thing to hear a story about a cursed artifact. It is another to stand in front of it and feel your body react. This power is why the collection cannot be treated like entertainment. Each object demands respect. Greg and Dana know the risk of allowing these things to be handled carelessly, which is why their role is not about display. It is about control. The objects may be silent, but their presence can still reach out and disturb anyone nearby. That unseen power is what makes the collection both fascinating and frightening. The deer skull, among the many unsettling artifacts in the Newkirk's collection, one of the most infamous is the cursed deer skull. Its story begins in Nashville, where a woman discovered it hanging in an antique store. At first, it seemed like an unusual but harmless decoration. She brought it back to her office, unaware of the chaos it would unleash. Almost immediately, her employees began falling ill with no clear explanation. One was even struck by a car soon after the skull arrived. Then, in a shocking twist, the wall where the skull was displayed collapsed, bringing down half the building with it. Frightened and overwhelmed, the woman turned to Greg and Dana for help. She explained the string of misfortunes and begged them to take the skull away. The Newkirks agreed, and the cursed deer skull became part of their collection, locked carefully in their basement. But even there, its presence has not gone unnoticed. Visitors often report feeling uneasy near it, racing hearts, sudden headaches, or the urge to step back as if their body senses a threat. The skull is a reminder that even the simplest objects can carry darkness. What might look like an ordinary relic of nature has become something feared, bound to strange accidents and pain. For the Newkirks, it is not just another artifact. It is a warning of how deeply a curse can cling to the ordinary. Reactions of fear. Not all reactions to the Newkirks collection are quiet or subtle. Many visitors experience sudden, intense responses the moment they step near certain objects. Some feel a heavy pressure in their chest, their heartbeat quickening without reason. Others are overcome with panic or waves of anxiety, so sharp they can barely breathe. On more than one occasion, people have nearly fainted in the basement. Some vomit, some dry heave, while others leave shaking, unable to explain what just happened to them. Greg and Dana have witnessed these moments repeatedly. They have learned to recognize the signs: the pale face, the sudden sweat, the uneasy sway of someone about to collapse. For the Newkirks, these reactions are proof of the power these cursed objects carry. It is not imagination, it is not suggestion. The body itself responds, as if it senses danger on a level deeper than thought. Each reaction reminds them why the collection must be handled with care. The basement is not a haunted attraction, and these moments are not performances. They are real, visceral experiences that show how strong the influence of these objects can be. To Greg and Dana, every frightened gasp or trembling visitor reinforces their duty. These objects are more than stories. They are active forces that can reach out and affect anyone who dares get too close. Deadly ring. One of the most feared items in the Newkirks collection is a small, simple ring that carries a terrifying reputation. At first glance, it appears ordinary, just another piece of jewelry, plain and unremarkable. But its history sets it apart. The ring is said to bring death to anyone who wears it. According to the stories passed down with it, every person who slipped it onto their finger met a tragic and untimely end. Some suffered sudden illness, others fatal accidents, and a few simply never woke up again. For this reason, the ring is kept under the strictest watch. Greg and Dana refuse to allow anyone to try it on, and even standing near it is enough to make visitors uneasy. The thought alone that something so small could hold the power to kill is enough to leave people shaken. Many who have seen it describe feeling chills, as though the object carries a coldness that lingers in the air around it. The deadly ring represents the darker side of the collection, where danger is not just suggested but deeply believed. Unlike playful tales of haunted dolls or spooky antiques, this artifact has a reputation that commands respect and fear. It is a reminder that curses, whether born of belief or something unseen, can be as lethal as they are mysterious. Failed Exorcism Bible. Among the objects in the Newkirks' care is a weathered Bible tied to a chilling story. Unlike sacred books kept for comfort or guidance, this one carries the memory of failure. It was once used during an exorcism meant to drive out a dark presence, but instead of cleansing, the ritual ended in disaster. The Bible, once a tool of protection, became forever marked by the event. For those who believe, its pages no longer represent hope. They hold the weight of something unresolved and dangerous. Greg and Dana explain that the Bible feels heavy in ways beyond its worn leather and fragile paper. Visitors who stand near it sometimes report a pressure in the air, as though the atmosphere itself thickens. Some describe a sudden sadness or dread that settles over them, as if the object retains the echoes of the failed ritual. The Bible is not displayed for shock, but rather guarded carefully, because its history alone demands respect. To the Newkirks, this artifact is a powerful reminder that not every attempt to fight darkness succeeds. Sometimes the struggle leaves behind scars, and objects like this carry those scars forward. The failed Exorcism Bible is more than an old book. It is a symbol of unfinished battles, of faith tested and shaken, and of the dangers that linger when evil is not fully driven away. Illness doll. In the basement collection rests a doll unlike any other, known for the sickness it is said to spread. At first sight, it seems harmless, just a child's toy worn by time and use. But its history is dark. Wherever this doll has been, illness has followed. Families who kept it reported sudden waves of fevers, unexplained weakness, and long stretches of poor health. Some became convinced that as long as the doll remained in their home, recovery was impossible. The stories grew so troubling that its owners eventually begged the Newkirks to take it away. Now it sits under their care, carefully watched and never treated as a playful curiosity. Visitors who stand near the doll often speak of feeling uneasy, sometimes light-headed, as if its reputation alone casts a shadow over them. For Greg and Dana, the doll is one of the clearest examples of how ordinary objects can carry extraordinary fear. It reminds them, and everyone who sees it, of the fragile link between belief and experience. Whether the illness it spreads is supernatural or psychological, the outcome is the same suffering. The illness doll is more than a toy. It is a symbol of how something innocent in form can carry a presence that is anything but. To hold it is to risk what countless others have already endured. The Crone Found, of all the cursed artifacts the Newkirks have encountered, none carries a story as disturbing as the Crone. This unsettling wooden effigy was not purchased or passed down. It was discovered deep in the Catskill Mountains. Two hikers, exploring off the beaten path, stumbled upon a hidden cave. Inside, they found the carved figure of a woman, its surface scarred with nails driven into the wood. Around its neck hung a small noose, adding to its eerie appearance. Curious and unprepared, the hikers took the figure home, unaware of what they had unleashed. Almost immediately, their lives began to unravel. Strange things happened in their house. Unseen footsteps echoing across floors, wet prints appearing where no one had walked. Animals growing restless and afraid. Fear overtook their curiosity, and desperation soon followed. Not knowing what else to do, they sought help and were eventually connected to Greg and Dana. When the Crone arrived in the Newkirks' care, it became clear this was no ordinary cursed object. Even in a collection of dangerous items, the Crone radiated something darker, something heavier. From its appearance alone, it looked like an object created with purpose, a vessel for intent that was never meant to bring peace. It was not simply found, it was waiting, and now it had a new story to tell. Fear of the Crone quickly proved itself to be the most terrifying object Greg and Dana had ever taken in. Unlike other cursed artifacts, which caused unease or strange misfortune, the Crone brought fear that was overwhelming and immediate. People who stood near it often described crushing anxiety, as if a heavy weight pressed down on their chest. Some reported dizziness or the urge to flee, while others refused to even stay in the same room once they caught sight of it. One visitor traveled all the way from Canada, determined to see the Crone for himself. Despite the warnings, he begged the Newkirks to remove it from its container. At first, he seemed only fascinated, but within moments his body reacted violently. His eyes rolled back, blood filled his mouth, and he collapsed into a seizure so intense that paramedics had to carry him away.